I met my wife during the pandemic over some toilet paper, and everybody running out of toilet paper, and single guy, I had plenty. No one's going to listen to me. And then it was kind of like, well, they're not really listening to me. They're listening to everyone's car story. Everyone, whether you're fully knowledgeable or a little bit of knowledge, everyone offers a different perspective. And I asked that question that I always ask, what's your advice? And his answer was, I'm just trying to appease the 11-year-old kid in me. I called Ashley and I'm bawling, driving down the interstate. I'm literally tears running out. Cruise control set on the truck, and I'm telling her they're actually coming. A lot of the car world can attribute to your daily life too. I don't always feel like working on this car. I also don't always feel like going to work.
Right.
But
if you
have to work on the car.
Yeah, if you want it to get done. Welcome to the License and Registration Show. I'm your host, Mike Ryu. Today I've got Matt Boyes with us from the Hotrod Hangout podcast. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. Just to kind of give the listeners a little bit of background, why don't you tell them who you are and what you're about?
So I'm Matthew Boyes. I started in cars kind of, at a young age, the same typical, dad was a hot rodder, going to car shows with him. And then, life changes and figuring out girls, you kind of get away from it. And then I met my wife during the pandemic over some toilet paper. And, everybody running out of toilet paper, and single guy, I had plenty.
You had plenty.
So at that time I was into the motorcycle stuff more, and we did a swap on the bike and kind of got her. She's always been interested in the car scene or car world, but she was always told girls don't belong in a garage. And I told her well, put your hand up. And she was like, what? I'm like, just put your hand up. I was like, yeah, your hand's smaller than mine. It'll fit in more places. You're hired. Come on, let's go. We're going to the shop. And also I was in a kind of a bad spot head-wise, and the garage beating on stuff and, working on stuff kind of cleared it. So I was like, if you want to hang out, it's probably going to be in a garage with us, or with me. And then when we bought this house, which was supposed to be temporary, but it's a little longer than temporary at this point.
That's usually how it goes.
We ended up buying a 54 Chevy. We named it Michelangelo because it's the orange Ninja Turtle.
Love it.
And just kind of tinkered with it, and it's extremely reliable. So we just, kind of driving it. And then the project that everyone can kind of see a little bit of is Envy 29 Model A. It's going to be bagged and body dropped, hidden air ride. Small black Chevrolet with a hog ass cam so I can whop it when I want to. And, just kind of getting more into it. And then after that car's done, then we'll start on Ashley's, whether she wants to continue to build the 54 or...
right.
Yeah, the train's close.
That's all right. We do most of the shows live now anyway, so I just call it, it's ambiance.
Yeah. So she's undecided on whether she wants to do the car or not. I kind of got a couple ideas, but the Model A was my vision, so that car will be hers. Gotcha.
No, I love that. And it really sounds like cars for the most part have always been a part of you.
Yes.
So was there kind of a moment where this was yeah, I'm into this?
Well, going to car shows with my dad, and I remember, he was a big trade guy. So, we would go to the swap meet or go to Webster at the time, was still in Webster. Mm-hmm. And, there was, 50, 60 cars, and, you'd walk the thing, and my dad would go talk to the guy, and you're BSing with them. And, hey, I like your car. Oh, what do you got? Oh, I got that truck over there. Well, I like your truck. All right, well, you got your title? Of course I brought my title. All right, well, so did I. Here, sign title, and now we're driving something different home.
The good old days.
And it was, it kind of, and I did the Hot Wheel stuff. Mm-hmm. There used to be a guy that was really big Hot Wheel dealer that come to the Webster swap meet, and I would buy a Hot Wheel, and the next month I would take a Hot Wheel back with me, and I would try to trade him, or I would take 2 or 3 Hot Wheels and try to trade them for the Hot Wheel I wanted, and and it was kind of like he was losing money, but he was just doing it to,
right.
Continue on. So that was kind of what I've always tried to do is, it's not the car scene isn't just muscle cars. It isn't just 30s traditional hot rods. It's not 50s customs. It's everybody across the board.
Right.
So, and that was kind of why we started the podcast, was to show like everyone's welcome. We mess with old stuff, but if your idea is, a tuner car, bring it out. One specific story is we used to do a cruise in Inverness, and a guy with a little Honda Accord or something showed up, and he pulls in and he like parked way off, and I walked over and I was like, you here for the cruise in? Yeah. I was like, come park over here. And he's like, well, I know this isn't what y'all usually deal with. And I'm like, well, tell me about the car, man. Like, he's like, oh, it's on coilovers and it's got a turbo. I'm like, it's cool as shit. Bring it over here. Like, it's not, and he's like, well, it's not old. And I'm like, do you like it? Yeah. That's all that matters. Like, and a lot of people get stuck in, well, my car's not nice enough, or my car's not this enough. If you dig it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And your car doesn't have to be everybody else's taste.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we've talked about this before on other shows where for the longest time it felt like it was domestic versus JDM, hot rodders versus new school, the truck gangs versus, everybody else. And now we've kind of seen, I think, this kind of metamorphosis of car culture where we still have a lot of like niche specific shows or events, but we're seeing a lot of events now where it's just car culture as a whole. Yes. And that, I think, is probably the best way for us to continue the community definitely. And the drive and the passion moving forward.
Well, and we say on the podcast, like, we're all doing the same stuff. So, like, mini truck guys, they call it body dropping. Mm-hmm. Old school guys call it channeling. We're all doing motor swaps. I mean, the car that's sitting here, it's getting a small block Chevrolet. They're doing LS stuff. If it had a hood on it, like if Michelangelo it'll get a motor swap and an automatic transmission, it will probably end up with an LS because it's got a hood. No one's ever going to see it. Mm-hmm. This car, the only reason it's got a small block is because I wanted the tunnel ram because I want it over the roof because I want it to be outrageous.
Mm-hmm. What's part of the appearance?
And an LS motor and an open wheel car, in my opinion, that's an ugly motor. I mean, you can doll them up, but at that point it's lipstick on a pig type, and that's not to me.
Right.
I've seen LS motors in some of these C10 builds and stuff like that, and they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I'm not putting $2,000 worth of stuff on top of it to make it appear like a small block. I could just go build a small block.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So what in all of this, from a young kid going to shows with your dad, building cars, being a part of the car scene as an enthusiast, at what point did you decide that you wanted to start a podcast? And now you're almost 100 episodes in? So it was kind of, we were going to car shows, and I love talking to people. I love hearing people's stories, the 54 going places, and, even a gas station. Somebody's going to pull up because they identify with these cars. Their dads, their grandparents, or themselves. You hear, oh, I took my wife on my first date in my mom and dad's brand new 54 Chevy. And it's like, awesome, and so we, I would talk to people, and Ashley actually come to me and was like, hey, like, you BS about cars all the time. Why don't we do this? And it was kind of like, well, I mean, I like to talk to people, but no one's going to listen to me. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of like, oh, wait, well, they're not really listening to me. They're listening to everyone's car story. So we tried, we've had everybody on except for the big wheel, little tiny mud tire trucks. I've tried to get them on. I've ragged on them to try to like provoke them to come on and tell me it's cool. Right.
And just whatever it is, they don't want to. And that's fine if you enjoy your stuff. And it's starting to get because I do have friends that are in that truck scene, and it's awesome to see their builds are actually taking a step back to a more daily driver. You know, I was listening the other day, Scoop from SMG. You know, he's known for 20+ inch lifts, and now, you know, he's like, oh, the biggest lift I got on any of my trucks that are going to SEMA this year is 10 inches. He's like, it's a daily driver, you know, or you put it on Kelderman with the air ride so you can still fit it in your garage, you know, and so I see the car scene as kind of modifying itself to kind of make everybody fit, and that's what we need to get back to, because like our show, the Hangout, we were trying to mimic showing up at your buddy's house.
Yeah, all the cars in the driveway.
You know, that was what it was okay, so, you know, you had a buddy that was a welder, you had a buddy that was really good at paint and body work, you had a really, you know, and you would just kind of like, all right, hey, I'm dropping a motor in. Okay, and everyone would pull up. It wasn't like organized. It wasn't, you know, it was kind of like the meme, the bicycle meme just turns into a bunch of cars in the driveway. And it's, you know, and they're just there for pizza and beer and to hang out and offer a hand when they can. And I don't have to know you to want to be that guy for you. You know, go to a show and you're driving and you see a classic car on the side of the road. You slow down and you look for the thumbs up or the thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, you pull over and, hey, you know, we drive old stuff, so we got tools. Right. You know, do we have the tool you need? No. Okay, well, you need a part? I can run up and go get you a part. You know, it's all one big family, and I don't care Ford versus Chevy. I mean, I drive a Dodge. My dog's name's Chevy. I'm building a Ford. We got another Chevy Classic. Like, I don't, you know, the brand thing, you know, I grew up as a Chevy guy because that's what Dad was. Right. But I'm not going to walk past a cool Ford or a Merc or you know, there's just so many. And even if a car's not for me, you know, I'm not the low guy, but you better bet I'm going to go look at it or take a picture of it, or because the passion, especially cars that you know that they put their blood, sweat, and tears in it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this guy's just rolling this car out. You know, it's amazing the diversity that is starting to be seen.
Yeah. Well, and I think as a automotive enthusiast, you tend to recognize when there is passion in a project. You can understand that it takes quality, it takes ingenuity, whether it's planning, you know, the hours spent wrenching, the hours spent, you know, perfecting the body work, whatever it may be. You see that, and you can appreciate it.
Oh, and that's 100%. And for anybody that's building a car, if you don't plan, you'll wish you did, because you're gonna have to go back and redo stuff. You know, and it's a lot. You know, if you think forward thinking, you know, like the steering on this, it's going to be crossover. Well, crossover won't work if the front end goes up and down 6-8 inches. Mm-hmm. You know, the steering wheel is going to look jacked when it's laid out if it's right at, you know, and so it's like, okay, well, we'll put a 4-spoke on it. And it's like, well, what if it doesn't air up to perfect again? You know, you're chasing, so we're going to do cow steering. So the steering wheel is not going to move. Or frame rail design, you know, with the 12-inch kick-up in the front. I got to put a motor in there. I got to get headers on it, you know. So it's thinking about how can I accomplish this without having to modify the other stuff that I want, the needs. Yeah. You know.
So how does that, so back to the podcast how do you take a similar approach with the podcast and kind of planning and thinking about it? And if so, you know, how do you go about planning for your podcast?
So we welcome everyone and anyone listening to this podcast. If you have a cool story or you just want to come chop it up with us, you know, reach out. I try to get a diverse, like I don't want 4 traditional guys in a row. I don't want 4 custom guys in a row, because they are, you know, you focus on what you like. Mm-hmm. And to say like, oh, okay, a car guy will go look at everything, but they're going to have that one little genre or car that just does it for them. You know, as a typical car guy, I could probably tell you, if you give me a year range, I could probably give you a car I'd like to build in that, you know, era. You know, I would love to build a muscle car. I'd love to build a C10, building a 29. You know, it's so, but you're going to have that one avenue that you cater to. And we just try to either mix it or try to give other perspectives, because it is welcome to everybody. It's not a gatekeep. This isn't, you know, you can bring your stock car out if if people are, and that's the thing that kind of got lost in. It used to be like, I don't care what you drove, like come out and hang out, because the hot rodders didn't start with hot rods. They started with a Model A that was fendered, and then they were like hanging out, and they're like, okay, well, it's free to take the fenders off. So I'm gonna take the fenders off. Okay, well, we can lower the rear end. You know, it's gonna cost me a 6-pack of beer and a pizza for my buddy to come over and weld lower, you know, to lower the rear spring, or you know what, or heat it up, or whatever, you know, wherever genre you're in, to do what you want to do with it. And then those cars got built. People that don't make $1 million a year aren't going out and buying their dream car first right off the rip.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
I want a big boat caddy. I started with a 54 Chevy that's 14 foot long. I want a caddy that's 30 foot long. You know, it's, you know, and it's the complete opposite.
Right, right.
But I don't have 64 Lincoln Continental money.
Right.
My bank account says that that's not in the cards right now. You know, there's a blower belt set up on that motor back there. I don't have blower money. So I put a Gilmore belt drive on it to make it look like it's got a blower, until maybe one day I can figure out something to trade for a blower. You know, and it's so, and then when, like we had said earlier, you know, I try to cater the questions. You know, we have our standard list of questions to kind of get to know people, but then I try to cater a couple questions that are going to be in their wheelhouse. You know, like when you were on, you know, we talked about the photography side of it, because Ashley does all our photos. So it's kind of, I don't know. So let me get a little bit of information to maybe be able to help her, you know, because everyone offers, you know, I've said it thousands of times, everyone, whether you're fully knowledgeable or a little bit of knowledge, everyone offers a different perspective. You know, I've been on the driver's side of the car, Ashley's on this side of the car, and I'm like, man, this square peg will not fit in this round hole. And she goes, well, if you flip it around, it's round on the other side, but all I'm seeing is it's not working.
Right.
You know, or the little kid, you plug your trailer in, you hook to your trailer to go somewhere, and the lights have always worked. Now they don't. And the little kid walks by and goes, well, if you plug the lights in, they'll probably work. And you're like, oh, you know, and it's usually stupid stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That it's just, you've gotten in a repeat, you know, like you say, you know, forgetting to change your shoes, forgetting camera, forgetting a mic, forgetting, you know, we've went places and it's like, oh, I meant to bring the GoPro, or, oh, I meant to do this. And it just didn't happen. And sometimes you're close enough to run home and get it.
Sometimes.
Other times, well, this show's getting shot on an iPhone.
Right, right.
You know, and it is what it is.
So in your shows, and we talk about the diverse guests that you've had, is there either a specific guest or a question and then an answer that you were like, damn, like that really, like that sticks out, it stuck with you, like I remember this?
So we had C-Max, which he has, he does Burnout Rivals with the Cletus stuff. And he has it's a welding rig, with a Duramax in it. It's a C10 or K10 rather. But, and he did Sick Week, with my buddy Tyler with Why Not. And he come on an episode and I asked that question that I always ask, you know, like what's your advice? And his answer was, I'm just trying to appease the 11-year-old kid in me. He's like, at 11 years old, I like tire smoke and coal. He goes, so now I build trucks that I can roll coal and throw tire smoke. He goes, I'm just trying to appease that little kid inside me. And I was like, that's 100% it. You know, this is the car that I wanted when I was 11.
Mm-hmm.
This was, you know, or this is the avenue I wanted to take, you know, and it's not just car stuff. A lot of the car world can attribute to your daily life too. You know, I don't always feel like working on this car. I also don't always feel like going to work.
Right.
But
if you
have to work on the car,
you
have
want it
to
to
go to
get
work.
done.
You know, and that's the thing. And, you know, and recently I broke my foot and had to take time off, and then we got sick and all that stuff. And you like go back to work and you're like, man, I was only off for 3 or 4 days, but it feels like you were off. And the same with builds. You know, you're staring at a car and you're like, man, I don't feel like working on it. And you waste a week.
I feel it's almost like momentum.
Yeah, and then you go back out there and you got to stare at it for 45 minutes before you figure out what the next step is, because you ain't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, a big one is if you're getting burnout, whether it's in life, whether it's on a car, take a step back. Reevaluate, hey, does it have to be done? Like, the biggest thing is this car had a deadline. When it came back to us, there is no deadline. There's shows that I would like it to make it to, but I'm not committing myself to a deadline because I'm not. It adds stress that's not necessary. You chop corners, or you cut corners. You try to get something somewhere, and you ended up a good, for instance, this car was supposed to go to that local show we were talking about in Webster as a roller. And as we were piecing it together, I'm like, we're doing stuff to the car that's going to have to get undone.
Right.
We're just doing it to make it there. And it's like,
yeah, you start, you rush, you don't do something quite as well as you normally would have. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you got to cut stuff back out to make it work, you know, and especially like on this car, there's still no floor in it. Mm-hmm. So we're welding body to frame with spare sheet metal just to try to make it load itself on a trailer, or us to load it on a trailer to go over there. And then you're like, well, is this what I want the world to see this car as?
Right.
No, I don't want anyone to see that car like that, because that's not the work I'm putting out.
Yeah, because even if later on when it is done, and it's done to the ability that you, or I guess it's done with the quality that you want, yes. It's kind of like first impressions versus second impression. Oh, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And getting cars ready for shows and thinking about like the podcast, and then the podcast has also transitioned into a couple of live events. Mm-hmm. So you guys put out and got together and organized the Hotrod Hangout, that was at Don Garlett's Racing Museum.
Yes.
Have you, prior to doing that, have you ever put together a show before?
No.
And then tell me about your process from going from we have a podcast to I want to host and organize a show.
So we did we were doing monthly cruise-ins, and it was kind of like, okay, but we were also attracting cars that were the quote unquote trophy hunters.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, if you like a trophy, that's fine. Everyone can enjoy the car world however they want to enjoy it. There's some people that can open their garage up and look at their amber winner from 10 years ago and go, hey, that's a beautiful car, I love it, and shut the garage door, and they're fine with that. I can't do that. I have to drive my stuff, or I feel like I'm not enjoying it the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
So that show, I was like, you know, there was a big show at Don Garlett's called Bulletproof, and it kind of exemplified to a lesser effect, everyone welcome. It was more of a no billet, no frilly, you know, it was more hot rod-ish. Whereas I don't care what year it is, bring it. lifted, lowered, bagged, hydraulics, mini trucks, everything. And it was kind of like, this is a place to try to mimic that garage hangout. That pulling up at your buddy's house. And what was awesome about the hangout was Don Garlitz was there, and he opened up his garage. So it was legit. We're all parking in the field.
Super cool.
In front of his garage. So it was kind of like, all right. And, Randy Jackson with the Gasser Garage. I've said it on our podcast, but I had went down south to pick something up, and I was coming back up 75, and I seen him go live. And he had said, like, yeah, I'm going to try to make it. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I seen him go live, and I'm like, shouldn't do this. Don't do it while you're driving on the road. But I opened my phone up, and the title of the live was Getting Gas to Head to Warmer Weather. And I'm like, are you serious? Because this is when you're supposed to be leaving for Florida. If you're coming, like, this is it.
This is it.
And I called Ashley, and I'm bawling. Driving down the interstate, I'm literally tears running out. Cruise control set on the truck, and I'm telling her they're actually coming. And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Randy Jackson, they're coming." And so his girlfriend Misty has a '53 Chevy. She drove her car from Oklahoma to Missouri, picked up his homemade trailer with his chassis research modeled dragster. He got the designs from Chassis Research, and he built the chassis himself, and they drove that car from Missouri to our show.
That's awesome.
And then had some hiccups. When he pulled into our show field, it had 2 4x4s screwed together, holding the rear crossmember up for the hitch.
Oh, no.
Because he lost the cross member on the route. And instead of going, all right, we're done, fabbed it up enough to get it here. My buddy's like, hey, bring it over. We'll throw it on the lift. We'll do this. We'll fix it where you're going back. Well, come to find out, probably 6 years ago, that car was at Lions Dragway. Don Garlitz was at Lions Dragway. Randy asked him, hey, would you come look at this car? And Don was like, man, I'm having a bad day. I can't walk that far, but if you push it over here, I'll look at it. And Randy said about halfway to him, Don stands up and comes trucking over because he didn't realize it was
He didn't realize
it was a front engine dragster. And he's looking at it, and Randy asked him to sign it, and then they ended up at dinner together, and he's like, he didn't know that Randy was there, and he's like, oh yeah, that guy's probably going to try to sell that signature, but I sign everything, so it's not worth nothing.
Right.
Well, now it's sitting at Don Garlitz's museum, and Don Garlitz walks over and sees it, and now they're reminiscing from Lions, and now they're driving around on the golf cart looking at cars together at my show, and I'm like, this is success. Like,
That's
if
awesome.
nothing else, if nobody else would have showed up,
right?
And that was kind of, but again, this was our first show, and we go to hundreds of car shows a year. And you're like, oh, okay, well, you just say, like, you call somebody up and go, hey, I want to have a car show. And they go, cool. And it's going to be this date. You just show up and everything's like, great.
It runs flawlessly.
Like, and, like, oh, wait, I have to get a logo designed. But how long does that take? You don't know. I didn't know. So, like, I called Johnny up, and he's like, when do you need it? And I'm like, ASAP. And he's like, okay, well, next year, try to call me a little earlier. I'm like, will do. And insurance, $1 million insurance. Are the cars moving? No, they're going to pull in and park. Okay, because that's more. And you're like, okay. And then, trophies. And we did skateboard decks because we wanted something that we could mimic.
Cool. I like that.
We could mimic every year. And then all of our advertisers that came to the show built a trophy. And we had raffle prizes and stuff like that. But again, I just assume, like, you call somebody up and go, hey, I'm having a show. You want to donate some stuff? And they'd be like, yeah, cool. And they'd come. Well, that's not how that happens. They need time.
What was what was the biggest surprise or unexpected thing that went with organizing the show and getting it off?
Cost. Again, I just figured people would want a car show in their parking lot or in their venue. We called around, and the first one, I canceled the show. I called Ashley, and I was like, we can't do this. There's no way we can make that up. Because, again, as a first one, you don't know. Is it going to be 20 cars? I know there's going to be 5 cars because that's what we roll with. So I know there'll be 5 of us. But, like,
at least a handful.
But 5 at $20 or $25, that's not going to pay the $5,000 bill for the place.
Right.
And then pricing, you know what you got to make back, and you're trying to price where it's good enough that somebody's going to come, but not so good that you're going to lose money. So at the end of it, the goal was we were donating all profit and the 50-50 to the Ryland Strong Network, which we had to explain what that was. So that kind of hindered. But our goal was just to try to break even or as close to even as possible. And we came close. But we also learned you can't make everyone happy. Mm-hmm. I would love for it to be a free show. I'd love to have food trucks there and they just give food out.
Right.
I would love to do that. That would be awesome. But we don't have enough support behind the show to be able to do that
yet.
Hopefully yet. and that's the thing. But people, and food trucks. Why wouldn't you want to come set up and sell food and look at cool cars all day? Mm-hmm. But also, it's their business. So now, how many cars did you have last year? Didn't have a show last year. Oh, this is your first one. And you're like, okay, well, and some of them were good and like, oh, well, how much is it? Well, this year it was free because I didn't want you at the end of the day to go, well, I made $10 and you charged me $200. So free. So anything you made after you walked in the gate was your money. Mm-hmm. Go home, have a good day. And hopefully that would satisfy. And for the most part, our food vendors did well enough that they want to come back. But there was some questions. And people, oh, that's too much. It's like, okay, well, what is the price? You'll go pay $20 to go sit in a parking lot and win a Five Below trophy.
Yeah.
But $25 and a $15 discount into the museum. So really, you're paying me $10. That's too much. And it's because they have other, like a lot of them left our show and went to the big lots for their $5 or Five Below trophy.
Yeah, they get used to. I mean, I think it's changed a little bit over the years, especially with the advent of like the cars and coffee style events, where you can have some of these really large meets that are essentially free.
Yes,
and there's still giveaways and things like that. Because I remember late '90s, early 2000s. Every show was a paid show. There really wasn't. There were maybe like the parking lot meetups in the evenings for the young kids.
The groups,
and the groups. But there wasn't much in the way of just parking lot hangs.
Yeah.
So you got used to like $20. Yeah, that's standard for a show. $20, $30. Some of the big shows, you get $30, $35. That type of stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. And so thinking about this event and even looking forward. Is it something you plan on doing again? And if so, what type of changes or adjustments do you think you'll make?
So we, last year we we had started with pre-registration was one price and day of was a different price. We ended up changing that day of to the same price as the pre-registration. You just didn't get the stuff that came with the pre-registration. We're going to do it again. January 3rd of 2026 at Don Garlett's. We'll be back. They loved what we were trying to do. They seen that, there was potential there to make something great. So we're going to go back. I'm going to get less in my head because this year any complaint immediately went to, am I messing up?
Mm-hmm.
Should it not be that way? And there was a couple day of things that I was hearing a complaint on one side of my head, but then on the other side, people are gladly doing what this person's complaining about or more.
Right.
You know, oh, it's 25. Oh, we lowered it to $25 day of. Oh no, you said 30. Here's a 50. Give me 20 raffle tickets to donate to the Ryland Strong Network. And I'm like, well, this guy over here is telling me the guys won't pay it. Like, and then, 80 cars registered. And it's like, well, which is it? And then at the end of the day, you have to realize, like, you're never going to make everyone happy.
No, you're dead on.
Why didn't my car win best of show? Well, because it, in my opinion, and that's again why I didn't want to do a top 30. Because if I judge your cars, I don't drive stuff with shiny paint. It's not that I don't like your shiny paint, but if there's a guy and he's literally trying to get it repaired enough to drive home, which we had, I'm like, that's the guy. Like, he's definitely going to win something. Right. So when our advertisers and our show sponsors came up and our car clubs came up, that's one thing that we're going to change. We're going to talk about that beforehand because my mom gave away her award to somebody that was going to win one of our trophies. But and then on the fly, you got to come up with somebody else.
Yeah. What's my backup?
But you're talking to them and you're like, hey, is that guy going to win something? And no? Okay, well, then one of our trophies need to go to him because that guy is busting his knuckles. He left the house that morning going, hope I make it. And then he made it, and he's like, okay, I hope I make it home. And you're telling the guy, like, as you're walking around, you're like, hey, man, like, I have a trailer going south. My car will run, so let me know if you need it, and I'll drive my car, and we'll trailer your car. We'll get you home, like, or which way you going. Oh, so-and-so's going that same direction. Maybe y'all can roll out together. And it forms friendships with people that you would never run into. I always say that I have all these friends that I've never met. And it's like we went to Jacksonville. We took Michelangelo to Jacksonville, and it was the Saw Customs Raw Music Festival show. And I'm like, we definitely need to go. And I'm like, my car's never been 3.5 hours on one trip.
It's a hike.
And, I'm like, and my buddy's like, well, what would they have done in 54? That is the daily.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you're right. He's like, what are you scared of? And I'm like, it's just never done it. And he's like, but it's made 1.5-hour trips, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's just 2 of them. He goes, drive 1.5 hours, stop for gas, because you ain't got no fuel gauge. So put gas in it to make sure you'll make it, and then ride up. And I'm like, what am I worried about? And they stayed back, and we cruised up with them, which I got to look at a vintage camper getting pulled by a 55 Chevy all the way to Jacksonville, which made me want, like, I'm in the hotel room researching vintage campers. Sudden, yeah. But like, we pulled up at the hotel, and the guy's like, 54? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, rust? And I'm like, yeah, man, that's pretty much describes the car. And he's like, you drove that here? And I was like, yep. He's like, are you selling it? And I'm like, no. Nope. He's like, are you headed home? And I'm like, nope. And he's like, why are you in Jacksonville? I'm like, there's a car show tomorrow. And he's like, where's Bushnell? And I'm like, it's 3.5 hours that way. And he's like, and you just drove it up here? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to try to drive it home tomorrow, but you're starting to give me a little bit of a complex.
We'll see how that works.
And it ran flawless. It's an old car. It has creaks and, stuff like that. And, dealing with your bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that car can't do that a new car can. You're not driving with the windows up in the summertime.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah.
There is no AC. It's got 2 windows at 60 AC. And sometimes it's not real cool in there. But the car's cool enough that it makes up for it.
Yeah.
And the car behind you isn't going to have a window in it besides the windshield and the back window. You know, there's no windows going in the sides because I don't want to have to roll down 6 windows. You know?
No, I can appreciate that.
You know, and it's straight cut glass, and people, oh, it's straight, you can just cut it. I'm like, yeah, but then I have to put them all down.
Yeah. It's still a process.
You
It's
know,
still
it's
something
like,
to do.
And it's getting chopped 6.5 inches. So unless it rains sideways, my
good.
butt's not getting wet.
Right. Yeah.
You
No,
know.
I'm fine.
So but again, it's just, it comes down to dealing with the problems that arise as they arise, and don't count yourself out before you're hurt. You know, don't cry before you're hurt. Don't stress it. Just go do it and make it work. And at that Jacksonville show, you know, it was known that we came from Bushnell, and people I'd never met, whether it was online or in person. Hey guys, my shop's 20 minutes south of here. I got a truck and trailer. It's already hooked up. If y'all got any problems, give me a call. If you're closer to us, we'll bring the car here. We'll fix it. We'll bring it home. If it's closer to y'all, we'll take it to the house. And it was like, this is what the car world's supposed to be. It's not a competition. There's no competition at the top.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
You rib, you know, Riddler cars. You know, you got Ken Diggett, you got Roadster Shop, you got all these builders that are fantastic. And they might throw a jab or a rib, but they're best friends.
I laugh.
You know,
I've always compared it to like the Sunday morning wrestling back in the day, where on camera they're all, you know, yelling and fighting, but that evening they're all out to dinner together laughing it up.
And that's exactly it, is because, you know, you're like, and even buddies, you know, you ever gonna get that car done? Well, I'm working on it. You know, or, you know, come over.
You'll do something and they're like, sure you want to do it that way?
Yeah, you know, and that's totally fine, because that's what it's supposed to be. And, you know, a lot of with this is, you know, I'll ask opinions. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it your way, but how would you do it? Mm-hmm. Because maybe your way is a different way that I haven't thought of.
Right.
And maybe your way makes way more sense than what I got in my head, because you can, it's easy to overanalyze as well.
Oh, I mean, because there becomes so many different variables
Yes.
too. Yeah, you can begin researching something and just dive into it, but never actually do it. I had somebody one time told me that you can read about doing push-ups, but you'll never get any better at it until you actually start doing them.
But yeah, and you know, and a lot of times, you know, and I was talking to an old school hot rod guy, and he was like, man, he doesn't build cars anymore. He's like, I have the car. He goes, I maintain it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to build. And I'm, you know, he's like, y'all have too many options. He goes, when I started building cars, your options were solid wheels or slots. And then Krager come on the market, and you had Kragers. But that was it.
Oh yeah.
You know, or you wanted bigger wheels, you found something that came with bigger wheels. and you made them fit.
You made them fit, right?
You know, and
absolutely.
it's now, you know, if you have a wheel design, you can, you know, we went with solid wheels, but even Mob Steel, 4 different wheel patterns that they offer. And, you know, or KMC or any of these billet companies, you know, 800 wheel designs. Don't like any of them? Send us your wheel design, we'll cut it. So it's like,
right.
You know, or grills, or, you know, we both have bumpers on our trucks, you know, like.
Oh, there's so many different options. Absolutely.
You know, and you get going, and then it's like, you buy something. Well, now it doesn't quite fit with the way your motor looks. So now you got to do something to the motor to make that work. And then, well, now it doesn't really fit the car. Well, see, now you're going back to what you originally had because it looked good that way.
Right.
You know, and it's like, you can get paralysis by overanalysis.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You know? And that's across the, you know, camera stuff,
well,
audio
I mean,
stuff.
That's any hobby, anything.
Yeah.
With the podcast, thinking about what you guys are doing with it now, what are your plans for it here moving into the future?
So I'm looking to currently we both have full-time jobs. Ashley's fortunate that she works from home, so if we go to a show and she needs to work a Friday or a Saturday, she can. My job is here.
Right.
I want to get more show coverage. We want to venture out to some of those shows that, we're trying to, when we go to shows and do show coverage, we're trying to show you what the show's about because, Turkey Rod Run, for an example, people that don't live in Florida, that have never been, they may be wondering, well, is it worth skipping turkey dinner with my family to go to a swap meet?
Right.
Okay, well, watch our YouTube video. And you can make an informed decision that, okay, that's what that show's about. I like it. We can go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, a California show.
Yeah.
If you're taking a car, now you're loading up a truck and trailer, or you're driving your car out there, and you get there and it's not what it was, what it said.
Right.
Now you're bummed. Whereas if we were there, we showed the video and you made the trip out and you think it's garbage. Well, you watched the video. You seen what was there.
Yeah, you knew what it was going to be about.
Kind of give you an expectation.
Absolutely.
So we want to get more into that, and we're doing more with the builds and stuff on YouTube and just trying to grow it and kind of see where we can land. And, I don't think I'll ever fully replace a day job with the podcast alone. It'd be awesome to be able to play with cars all day, but it's just not at the current moment. It's not feasible. As you know, this is not, it's not free.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
So
awesome. Well, definitely thank you for the time today. I know we said kind of doing a back-to-back show. That's been pretty cool. Where can people find Hot Rod Hangout Podcast?
So hotrodhangout.com or Facebook Hot Rod Hangout Podcast, Instagram Hot Rod Hangout Podcast, TikTok Hot Rod Hangout Podcast. I think that's it. But hotrodhangout.com. We got merch, a little bit of merch, and right now our show shirt is on special for $20, and you get a free gift.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, Matt, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for the time. Like I said, you and Ashley have been definitely graciously hosted us here at your place in your shop, so I can definitely appreciate that.
Well, thank y'all for coming out, and again, anytime, y'all are welcome back.
Appreciate it. Let's do it, man. I enjoyed it. All right, you guys, thank you very much for listening to the License and Registration Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.